back to the HaneyBiz Project with host Mark Haney.
Welcome back to the HaneyBiz Project, brought to you courtesy of Entrepreneurs Organization of Sacramento. I'm Mark Haney, and I am joined by Michele Steeb, the CEO of St. John's Program for Women and Children, and she brought along a special guest, Miss Shanti. How you doing, Shanti?
Good. How are you?
Good. How are you doing, Michele?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having us both.
You bet. Thank you for coming down and sharing your story. Can you give me and our guests an overview of St. John's?
Sure. So St. John's was actually started about 33 years ago on the steps of St. John's Lutheran Church. And for up until about the last 10 years, we were an emergency shelter. So we took women and children in who originally were sleeping on the church steps overnight, and we gave them a roof and we gave them a meal. But at 8 o'clock in the morning, they had to leave, and they were wandering the streets during the day until 5 when they could come back in. And then about 10 years ago, I came in and had a woman named Katie and her daughter Tori come in, and a couple days later, a woman named Shelley and her 2 boys. And I was really shocked to learn that Katie and Shelley were sisters. But the bigger surprise was to learn that 18 years earlier, when we were this emergency shelter model over on the steps of the church, that they were there with their mom.
Oh, wow. So they came back as adults in the same situation that their mother had been in a number of years earlier.
Exactly.
Wow, the cycle continued.
Exactly. They were just repeating what they knew.
Wow.
And I just decided, we can't just, serving them overnight is important, but if we really want to help them, we need to help them change their lives. So we built now a 12 to 18-month program that provides mental health counseling, drug and alcohol counseling, parenting, budget classes, work training. We operate 2 restaurants and a daycare program.
Wow.
And we give them all the tools they need in 12 to 18 months to be self-sustaining and to permanently exit the cycle of homelessness and poverty.
Well, I'm imagining that being a very difficult decision. As a CEO, I have a number of companies, but as a CEO of this entity, you've got to make the decision to pivot, right? You've changed the way that you do business today. Yes. Talk us through making that change.
Well, for me, it was just so clear, and we were clearly not making a difference by having, the children of the mothers that we once served return. So, in my mind, there wasn't a decision to make. I mean, there was only one decision, and that was to pivot, right?
So you pivoted, and you're no longer taking in women and having them spend the night. Mm-hmm. You're now focused on giving them the life skills needed so that they can make a permanent change.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you brought along a guest, and we might as well bring her in now. Shanti, welcome to the show. And can you give us an idea of your background and maybe touch on your story for us?
Well, I come from a household of 6 children. Both my parents worked for the prison, so they were guards for the prison.
Okay.
Lived in a nice home, nice cars, all of that, but a lot of dysfunction. So growing up was kind of hard because I'm multiracial, of course. Becoming an adult, got addicted to pain pills, but I'm a nurse though. So,
Wow.
Being a nurse, addicted to pain pills is not the way to go. I have 4 boys of my own. So before,
How old are your boys?
17, 13, 12, and 10.
Okay.
So, 4 boys. Yes.
That sounds like a handful in and of itself.
Yes. But I love it. They make me, a better person. They make me, they have brought me to St. John's because ultimately, the decision to change my life is because of my children.
And if you wouldn't mind sharing so you've had this success, your parents are successful, you become a nurse, you get addicted to painkillers, and then what happened?
Everything just started falling apart. My body was getting addicted to them where I had to take more and more. So I was buying them off the street on top of having my prescription from my doctor. So this wonderful income that I have had is no income at all because I can't pay for my rent for where I stay at in my home, my car payment, nothing.
Did you lose your job as a nurse?
Yeah, I had to let go of my job. Yes.
Yeah.
It was my passion is to help other people, and that's what I was doing. And how was I going to help anybody being addicted to these pills? My mind is cloudy. I'm not making the right decisions, and my mind is focused on how to get at this next batch of pills. So I'm not helping my patients, not helping my children and myself. So it wasn't any good to my job or my children. So
And then what did rock bottom look like? As I'm assuming it was near that time when you found St. John's.
I was in a motel on Watt Avenue, and was writing a letter to my children and to my kid's father, and not realizing at the time I was thinking about ending my life and didn't really even know it. Like being a mother of 4 children, you don't think about being selfish, and I was being selfish. So my kid's father is a wonderful man. He came and took my children, I finally came to being honest with him. I'm addicted to pain pills. He knew there was something going on, but I was in denial, didn't want to admit it. So I was at that point in time, I was ready to admit it. So I sent myself to Strategies for Change, and they recommended me to St. John's.
And were you there, Michelle, when Shanti came in? Were you?
Yes, we purposefully, all of our staff is, we're working and there with the clients when they come in. So I didn't see Shanti when she first came in the door, but I teach one of the first classes that our clients take when they come in, which is positive thinking. And it's a really important class because so many of our women come in crisis mode, and and coupled with that is often a lot of negative thinking and just not even really processing. So Shanti was, I remember her distinctly from the earlier classes, and to see her now, I mean, she looks you in the eye. She's
She's
completely
extremely
here.
professional. I mean, this is radio, but if you watch this on Facebook Live, you would see this is an attractive, professional woman that clearly you would say this lady has her act together. I mean, that's my take. Now, you've been through some struggle. How did St. John's turn that struggle?
Like she was saying, the classes. So the first 30 days, it's the uplifting classes, positive thinking, my favorite class. One goes hand in hand. Money matters. We have navigating barriers, teaching you how to overcome, credit challenges, domestic violence, which I've had a part of, different areas to, keep us uplifted in how we can move on the next day. A lot of us come from where we don't know how to budget. They teach you how to budget. Who to think we have to budget as an adult, right? So, it just uplifting you. You're able to, their doors are always open. Anybody in the administrative office, the AOD counselor, everybody is willing to be there, and they're open to be there for you. Just a listening ear, and that's what a lot of us just need.
Sometimes we just need a sounding board,
yes.
And a little bit of hope.
Yep.
We're going to share more of this story when we come back. I want to thank you, Michelle, for coming in and introducing us to St. John's program for women and children. Shanti, thank you for opening up like you had. We're going to ask you to do a little bit more sharing of what happened to you and how things are turning for you with the help of St. John's. When we come back, this is the HaneyBiz Project.
Welcome back to Mark Haney, igniting the entrepreneurial revolution with the HaneyBiz Project.
Welcome back to the HaneyBiz Project, brought to you courtesy of 5 Star Bank. I'm Mark Haney, and I'm rejoined by Michele Steeb, the CEO of St. John's Program for Women and Children, and she's brought along with her Shanti, and we've been talking about St. John's and the huge impact that you make here in our region, and Shanti's been kind enough to share her story. And Shanti, how common is a story like yours?
Until I got to St. John's, I was really oblivious to really that this is common. I've ran into a lot of women and to see what they've overcame, doing drugs with their mother as they were children growing up. who would have thought that that is reality, what's going on. And it's too common, and without people like Michele Steeb and St. John's, I don't think that, it would be, it's getting worse.
Well, when I drive into Sacramento, sometimes I'll see homeless people on the side of the road, but they don't look like you. And so Michelle and I were talking earlier, and I think, Michelle, you indicated that this is kind of like an invisible segment of our homeless population.
Yeah, so actually, we in the region are required by HUD, Housing and Urban Development out of DC, to do a count, and our count just showed that we have a 30% increase in homelessness over 2 years ago.
Wow.
What people don't realize, we don't normally see, sometimes, but not much, women and children on the streets. And the reason for that is because of the children. A lot of people will give them a couch or give them a room in their home until they can get somewhere. So we often call women with children the invisible segment. But just to give you a sense, we're now able, this year we have experienced a lot of growth. We're now able to serve up to 270 women and children every day. That translates
Wow.
to about 1,000 a year. But our waiting list every night is 288 women and children long, every single night.
Wow. And so the waiting list at the end of the night, what does that look like in terms? What happens to those people who are waiting?
Well, it's very sad, and I don't like to think about it very much, but the reality is that the inn is full. We require people to call in on a daily basis because that gives us an indication of their motivation to want to make the change. St. John's is a very tough program. It is not a place where you're allowed to sit and watch TV. There's no TV during the day. There's no going in your room. It is a tough program. But we require them to call in every day. After they've been calling in for a certain period of time, if there's availability, we bring them in for an interview. Again, St. John's isn't for everyone, and we don't apologize for that. We really need to assess whether you have the desire and the capability to make these changes in your life.
I keep thinking of the movie The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith and how he and his son were stuck sleeping on the bathroom floor. Is that the kind of thing that happens in Sacramento?
Yes, I mean, people live with their children. A long time ago, I remember when I was first starting out my addiction, I lost my apartment, and I was actually staying in someone who was doing meth downstairs, and we were upstairs, and we can smell,
Wow.
So it happens. I mean, bathroom and basically a crack house. I mean, it happens.
This
And
is the hidden population because I go through my daily life trying to build businesses. Obviously, Michelle, you've built this, you've pivoted, you've turned it around, you're helping so many people, but there's so many more to be helped.
Yes, and we are, we just experienced another, significant amount of growth. We're now, like I said, able to serve 90 more women and children, so that's up to 270 a day. But there's more to do, and we are aware of that. We also need to make sure, because one of the things with St. John's, we've moved away from public funding, not completely, but largely, because the public dollars say that you can't require accountability of people. You can't require them to be sober. You can't require them to do anything to improve their life. And we don't believe in that approach. So we've moved largely away from public dollars. We raise somewhere around $5 million a year, and we get about $2 million of public dollars. But we need to make sure that as we grow, we can continue to raise the money required to fuel that growth and to maintain it.
Well, you've made some decisions that seem like they would come from somebody in the private sector, right? You're running these businesses within St. John's and restaurants, right, where people can go get some, your inhabitants? What's the word?
Clients, we
Your
call them
clients. Okay, so your clients are able to get real world hands-on training while building these businesses that rest inside the organization.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yes, and it really came from the mission. We really wanted to help these women and children, women, become self-sustaining. And we started an on-the-job training program back in 2008, 2009 to give them, skills, on site. And what we realized is we really needed to do something bigger and over a longer period of time.
What
we
is the
started
success
restaurant.
story? Because obviously Shantae is a success, but she is a work in progress. You're 9 months in to the program that could last up to 18 months, depending on your progress. But what does the success story look like, Michele?
Oh, there's so many, but one that just popped into my mind that I'll share is Amy McMahon, and Shanti and I were talking a little bit about her on the way here. Amy came into our program addicted to drugs. She had just lost her husband. She had 3 children. She actually called CPS, Child Protective Services, and said, "Please take my children from me. I can't parent them properly." She got into St. John. She reunified with her children. She always loved to cook, and so she went into our Plates program. Our restaurant is called Plates. And she worked her way through that program. We placed her in a job. We ended up hiring her back as our sous chef. She ended up going to culinary school, and she now works at Hawks. And she is she's
That's a
one of the
high-end restaurant out here,
absolutely.
in
She's
Granite
one
Bay.
of the very significant people on their pastry team.
Wow.
So she's just, she comes to mind, but she is one of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds that we see every year. And it's, this is I always say my hashtag is best job in the world. I really believe I have the best job in the
Changing
world.
lives through mentoring. And I'm thinking, Shanti, with where you're at, you talked about your 4 boys, and I've gathered that that's your why. That's deep down inside that makes you want to continue to march on your path. What do you see at the end of this journey for you?
I want to go back to school for drug and alcohol because I remember when I was beginning my journey, I remember a 19-year-old child in the rehab needing help and was on heroin for 5 years. So, there's really no help for children, being addicted, and I want to go back to school, but, I want to get back in the swing of things of work. And I have my job in IFPI management that St. John's is partnered with for a job. So
Is that property management?
yes.
Oh, nice.
Yes. I really love what they stand for, so, and they are also helping other people. So
You love helping people. It's amazing how when we get touched by a mentor or a coach or somebody that helps us along the way, that it makes us want to, I guess, help the next person in line. Just thinking, we only have a minute or so left, Michele. What are the mentors like at St. John's? Obviously, they're effective, but what makes them so effective?
Well, we have staff mentors, we have volunteer mentors. We have over 300 volunteers a month who come through our door, and they are so crucial to our success. And, one of the things that's so great about St. John's is you're able to really, touch and see the women and children that we're helping. At the restaurant, at Plates, at First Steps, our child development center, at St. John's where they live, as a volunteer, as a donor, as a staff member, you are right there with them, and you're able to watch their journey and be a part of it, and every single volunteer, staff, donor are a part of it. It's a really cool ecosystem, and it works with all of us together, right?
Shantae, if you could sum up your experience at St. John and say one word, what would that be?
amazing. Yeah, it's been amazing that I've had this opportunity, that I had the will to change. Because going to St. John's, you have to have the will to change. So
Truly amazing. We want to thank you, Shantae, for sharing your story on the show. Michele, for what you've done, bringing a business mindset, an entrepreneurial mindset to something that could be ran more like a government agency, and you've turned it around. Thank you for what you do for the women and children of Sacramento, what that does for our overall community. That's what this show is all about. When we return, we're going to talk a little bit more about mentorship and discuss how it relates in entrepreneurship. Join the revolution at HaneyBiz.com, courtesy of private equity firm DCA Capital. This is the HaneyBiz Project.